I pray, Father, that I can touch the lives of those who may be still in darkness. I pray that those who may be on a fence and just don't know, and Father, may have never been taught about you or never grew up knowing your great love. And Father, just pray that those who know your name will share with them about how good you are, and that you are the Savior for our souls. And so, Father, we just praise you this morning. We lift you up in the name of your Son, Jesus, our Christ. Amen.
Amen. That was awesome, Tom. Thank you. You know, it's funny. Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6 have come up in every devotional that I've done this week. Every single one. Every single one. Not just some of them, all of them. So it sounds like God's tapping on my head for something. So here's one thing that I think needs to be said, that you're talking about, trusting God in every single thing that we do. Man, it's hard to do that. It's hard to turn over stuff and walk away from it. It's hard to do that.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. But what we don't realize is that when we do it, it's easier. It's easier for us if we can get ourselves to do it. But it's hard to do it. Thank you so much for that word. It's you're always so inspiring, and I can't wait to hear the one that you went to bed with instead of waking up with this one. But this one was great. So I feel like you're just speaking right in my face, and that's so awesome. So thank you so much for that. Folks, I am, again, so blessed that I get to go to all of these different mastermind events and real estate events and cruises and all kinds of things. And I get to meet the coolest people in the world, that just the top people in real estate that have just so much going on. And it's even better when it's another woman that I get to connect with. I have the pleasure of introducing Nancy Laabs, who's not only just another real estate investor, but she's become a good friend of mine. And I just love whenever I get the opportunity to talk and share with her. She both her and her husband are incredible in this business. But I'm going to brag on just Nancy right now. Don't be offended. But Nancy is one of those people that every time you turn around, she's got something new going on in her life. And it's not that she drops what she was doing. She just keeps adding on. And it's amazing how, number one, how she finds the time, but it's amazing how her heart is, how willing she is. Her desire is just to teach other people. And I love meeting people like that. Because you can see how when they help other people, how blessed it comes back to them. It's just pretty awesome. So I'm going to let Nancy just take over. Nancy, tell us about yourself. She's going to be screen sharing. She's got a new program that she's put together that I want you guys to hear. And then she's got a charity that she's working with as well. So Nancy Laabs, my dear friend, please take over.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And I feel blessed too to be here this morning. And Tom, thank you for that lovely devotional. And you know what, as I talk more, once we get through the program, I have something, because Brian and I have dealt with an unseen image enemy for a long time that we ended up turning into a nonprofit to help other people. But
awesome.
I want to introduce my great husband, Brian. We've been married for coming up on 22 years. We've raised 5 children together. We've built a real estate industry business together, and he is one of the most supportive people, because I go, oh, I have an idea. I want to do this. And, he supports me, and he gives me the freedom to kind of do what I do, which is, it just seems like my brain. I go to bed too at night, and I have this idea. And then when I'm sleeping, I'm like, oh, but wait, what if I did this, this, and this? So during the COVID times, I'm a very social person, and it's been hard to not, see all the people, and yes, virtual, but it's not the same as I'm a hugger. I've missed hugging and that physical contact that I kind of get strength from. So, but Brian and I were kind of talking about the real estate and the shift, and Wendy and I were talking about this beforehand, because I think that there's many things you can say about COVID. But one of the things that I do think is happening is that there's this huge shift in wealth that's going to be occurring through happenstance and all these decisions that people are making about which way our country is going to go. And one of those things is Brian and I have been investing in single family rentals for over 15 years. I had a property management company for over a decade. I managed over 1,000 doors. And so during COVID, I said, real estate has been really good to us. It's gotten us to the life that we want. We've gotten the financial freedom that everybody wants. And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to put this together. And so I'm going to share with you what I have been working on this last, for COVID. And it's called the profitable landlord system, because after all, if you're going to be a landlord, let's be profitable, right? I don't think I've met anybody yet that said, oh, hey, I want to be a landlord. I just don't want to be profitable. So I just called it the profitable landlord system. And some of you may already know this. I wrote one book called Winning Deals and Heels, and it's my story and 9 other women here. I'm in the Dallas, Texas area. And the reason I wrote it was just to give women that, sometimes it's hard for us to just get started. We take care of everybody in our lives. We take care of our family and our parents and our friends. And, and I've met so many women that want to get started. They want the financial freedom. They want to have the blessings, if you will. And so Winning Deals and Heels, and I never do anything without giving back, because I feel that, if you're blessed and you have a gift and you have resources, that you should give back. And so part of the proceeds from Winning Deals and Heels actually go to a shelter here called Hope's Door, which is a nonprofit organization that helps families heal from domestic violence. And it was really cool when we had, the book came out a little over a year ago, and we had our book signing of all, myself and the 9 other women at Hope's Door. They have a real resale shop that they were rebranding and reopening. So we actually did a book signing there to get some press for them and whatnot. So they actually, every time you buy a book, they get part of those proceeds. So, buy the book, go on Amazon, Winning Deals and Heels. Well, we're also coming up with the profitable landlord system. So there's a picture of the workbook there. And what the profitable landlord system is, it's basically Brian and I, how we accumulated our single family properties. It's simple, it's repeatable, and it's predictable. There is a method to real estate investing. Most people don't have a roadmap. Most people, if you've met them, if you've been in the business for a while, you meet the people, the newbies, and they're so excited. And there's a ton of information out there on, for free, but they don't know how to put it together. And I believe that everybody needs somebody, a mentor, a coach, whatever, to help you pick a strategy, learn that strategy so you can move on. So we started in single family, but we've also done flips, we've done notes, owner finance. So now we've come back full circle, but where our bread and butter is in single family rentals. So my background and Brian's, we are seasoned investors. Like I said, I had a property management company. I don't do property management anymore. There's a certain level, but I have seen every kind of, there's probably not a question you couldn't throw at me about a tenant that I have not dealt with. I'm really proud to say in North Texas here, I'm also a real estate broker, and I'm one of the very few real estate brokers that was certified by the Texas Real Estate Commission to teach other property managers how to manage. So I'm super proud of that. And I will say this, I'm a bit of a control freak. And I did have to let go of something, Wendy. So I have been self-managing my own rental properties for years. And I just finally, something had to give, and it had to be the management. So I literally turned over my management to a property management company. And I'll tell you it was hard. It was hard. But you know what? Once I did it, because I did my due diligence and I know what questions to ask them. And that was part of the reason of not turning it over, was because every time I went to ask a question, they didn't know. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't have you managing my properties. And once I did it and I let go and I had the faith that, this is not, then you know what? I was able to breathe easier and, have other focus. So, and I really am very passionate. During COVID, there's been a ton of people that have come out saying they're real estate gurus, that they've got a coaching program or whatnot, and they've been in real estate a nanosecond. So I'm part of a group, about 20,000 members on Facebook, and a new person said, real estate coach and a mentor. And 80 people put their hand up and said, I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I'm a this, I'm a that. And you know what I did? I said, you know what, if you want to I will just talk with you and I will give you the questions that you need to ask before you hire a coach or a mentor or anyone. And we did. And I wasn't going after her business. What I want her is to have the information so when the time comes for her to put money up, she's putting it with somebody that she's going to get value for that. And they're just not taking her money. So I'm big about that. And I've also done a lot of speaking, and I put, I'm a national, I could have put international because the group that Wendy and I are part of, we went to Cuba and I was a speaker. So I actually am an international speaker.
I claim that too then.
Now, when I did my, when I put this together, you're like, why? Okay, so I interviewed over 100 landlords and I said, why are you getting into this? Because some people like flips and some people like owner financing. And you know what? Every single one of them said, this is why I did it. I want to retire early. I want to quit my 9-to-5 job. I want financial freedom and I want to create generational wealth. And there's a lot of ways to make money in real estate, but single family rentals are, again, bread and butter for us. And that is generally the people that have a lot, they really create a lot of wealth. They're going to single family rentals because over time you're building appreciation, the tax deductions and all that. So we designed the profitable landlord system for those people who are looking for more time and more financial freedom and building their wealth. And also we're going to talk about leaving a legacy because that's where we're at in our lives and where we have been very fortunate. So I'm going to talk about our legacy, but most people want to give back. They want to be able to relax and take care of their children and their parents and their church and their community. They don't want to just sit here and just make money over money over money because then that's the evil part, right? Mm-hmm. They want to use their resources, their knowledge for good. And that is what the focus of the profitable landlord system was all about. Not only, did we have good mentors and coaches on our journey, but we wanted to give back in that way, but also give back to our community and have a bigger why. So what will you learn with the profitable landlord system? Well, it's really simple. You're going to learn how to find, fund, and manage single family rentals. This is not for multifamily. We didn't write it for multifamily, and it's not for commercial real estate. So it's only for folks that are looking for single family rentals. So number one, we call it profit. Everything's profitable, right? So a profitable seller is a distressed seller that, you're going to buy their house at. But, if you don't have deal flow, you don't have anything. So we spend about this is a 13-week program. So we spend the first 4 to 5 weeks just about marketing and marketing messages and giving you seller scripts and giving, what is the message? Because if you don't have deal flow, you don't have anything. Now, even though we focus on single family rentals, we help our students monetize every lead. And I'm so excited. I have I've been talking to this girl for 3 years. She almost got hooked up with some other not very ethical investors. And so I kind of steered her away from that. And so she contacted me a few months ago about another, she wanted to invest in condominiums or something. And I said, look, Erin, you've been talking to me about 3 years. She's all of early 20s, right? So she finally said, you know what, Nancy, you're right. She pulled the trigger and within 5 weeks, she had her first rental. And I'm so happy for her because she's 25 years old and she wants to, she's a nurse and a cardiology, yes. And she's tiny and she knows that, she might get injured, through the course of her career. So she wants to have stability in her life. So if that happens, and she has to quit being a nurse, that she will have financial freedom. So we're really excited for her. Profitable tenants, you can get the best deal, the best location, the best price, but if you make the mistake of the wrong person renting your single family, you will not be profitable, and you might not be profitable for a really long time. So we go into how to attract profitable tenants and what are the 4 questions you need to ask an applicant before you even set foot in a house with somebody to show your property, where to find them, and how to minimize repairs and repair costs. So I take all of the information that I have learned about being a property manager and managing single family and give all of my students this information. And then profitable funders. These are people like Wendy. Like, how do you want to structure yourself so that she'll give you money? You know, it's not about that the lender is a risk. You have to minimize your risk as a person that people want to lend money to. So we go into not just on hard money. You know, when you first start out, you can go to conventional banks, you know, Chase and all of that. But when you start buying more properties, you cannot go conventional route. You've got to find some other ways to buy properties. And love you, Wendy, but hard money is not the way to have single family rentals, right? So we spend a lot of time about how to build your private. I use a lot of private money now. It's negotiable, it's relationship based, and you know, and it's taken me a little while to build that network, but my lenders love me because number one, they know that they're going to get their money, they're getting a good return and that kind of thing. So non-traditional lending.
Hold on,
Yeah.
let's hang on that for just a quick
Okay.
second. That is one thing that I think it's important for everybody to understand, that private money is the best way to finance any deal that you have. And I think so many people do not realize, there are a number of people that do not realize that there's a ton of money sitting in self-directed IRA accounts, mattresses, cash in the bank that people are not using. And there are this money that's sitting there earning zero. They can give, you can give those people, you are helping those people that have that money earn money and earn interest off the money that's sitting there. They're not going to earn it in a bank. They're not going to earn it in the stock market unless they want to, you know, ride the roller coaster. And it's not collateralized if it's in the stock market. So I constantly promote that, learn about IRAs and how they work so that you can help other people who have self-directed IRAs understand what it's like to lend. Private money is absolutely the way to go. All right. Sorry, keep going.
That's okay. And you know what? Just a little plug here. I have helped oodles of people take their small dollar IRA, but you can use any amount, about how to invest in real estate. I'm actually creating a course that I will let you all know, but it's how to do that, how to become a private money lender and protect your money with a small dollar IRA. So, but our bigger why, so where Brian and I are at, and you know what, Tom, your message this morning was so really heartfelt for Brian and I. Yeah. So I'm gonna let him talk. I do let him talk every now and then. But you know what, when we want to help people, you know, build their wealth, right? But we also want to help people learn how to build a legacy. So part of our story that we do, and the Profitable Landlords is just sprinkled with all of our case studies and our stories about how we found properties and the mistakes we made and all of that. But we decided we would start a nonprofit, and it's called Map of Hope. And if I can figure out how to do it, I'm going to take you to the website. So our family has been affected by mental health illness. Brian was diagnosed with chronic depression after we got married, and it's been a struggle. So we decided to take that personal story and create Map of Hope. And it's all about how mental health and specifically chronic depression affected our family. So I'm going to let Brian kind of talk about how that happened in his journey, and I'm tapping his leg because I know we have a time and we want to be conscious of everybody's time this morning.
Well, to really make a long story short, is that in my mid-30s I was diagnosed with chronic, or what they called marked depression back then. And, you know, with the prescriptions and the prescription cocktails and years of trying to tweak the medications, in 2018, I actually, it broke down, and I ended up in the hospital, and they had to take me off everything and start all over. And then when working with my psychiatrist, we actually found this treatment called TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. And that was one of the things that really turned my life around. It was a treatment that not many people know about, and doctors don't talk about it, and insurance sometimes won't pay for it. So I went through a month of that, actually 36 treatments that are about 45 minutes long, and that really made a difference. It just changed our lives. It changed my disposition completely. And so what Map of Hope is a nonprofit, and we take proceeds from the profitable landlord system and donations from other people and help people to pay for their treatments that they may not be able to afford, their insurance doesn't pay for, and help supplement the providers that do this treatment, so that people can benefit from this treatment in their fight against depression.
So Map of Hope, if you go to mapofhope.net, I could figure out how to do it, but I'm scared I'm gonna like lose you all if I but mapofhope.net is our nonprofit. And I just want to do a little caveat. We have applied for the 503C standing with the IRS, and we haven't officially got it, but we're anticipating getting it any day because they sent us a letter. I just had to sign one thing, and then it looks like it's all going to be approved. But so the treatment that Brian had cost about $12,000. So we were fortunate because we had insurance that covered it. A lot of people don't have it. This is a non-invasive. It's not shock treatment. They literally.
What's it called again? Transcranial?
Yeah, transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. And it's approved by the FDA, but there's very few companies that do it. NeuroStar was the company that offered the machine and stimulation at my psychiatrist's office.
And Wendy, I'm doing a new share. I'm going to go ahead and go to the website so we can kind of just show everybody what it looks like and where they can read about it. So this is just what it is. And you'll learn about our story if it goes, that like Brian and I, what we've been through. And if you are someone that has a spouse or a family member, I think that all of us, especially with COVID, right? People are being affected by mental health issues. So this, we wanted to be able to raise awareness because number one, people don't even talk about mental health and illness and depression. And, you know, kudos to Brian, because I mean, he's from Milwaukee and men do not talk about their feelings and come out. And so when we decided to do this, I asked him, I said, are you going to be feeling comfortable? We've done a few interviews and podcasts about our Map of Hope, our nonprofit. And here's the thing. People in our society they just want to brush it under the rug, and we don't talk about it until a famous person commits suicide. And then people say, oh, well, you know, I didn't know, or how could have, or what, you know, Robin Williams was a perfect example. Here he is, he's successful. And most people that know Brian, I mean, he was very good at putting a mask. And so if you are living with someone with depression, you know, it affects me. And there are little to no support groups. Like we've been through every kind of talk therapy you want to talk about, you know, couple therapy. And my family had a lot of other dysfunctions, but depression wasn't one of them. So as his wife, I didn't know how to deal with it. I was like, well, what do you mean you don't want to get up off the couch or whatever? It was very hard for me as a woman. So we want to provide education about this wonderful treatment. Here's a picture of it. And we partnered with the NeuroStar, which they are the company that the FDA approved this. So this is kind of, you can see some videos, but they provided us with this information. We didn't want to recreate it, but how NeuroStar works. And we don't deal with the patient, like we don't qualify the patient. We work with the doctor's office. So it's kind of like, you know, they just say, okay, we have somebody that, you know, needs this treatment. And we work directly with the provider. We don't get into any of the like who's getting it or whatever. But this just talks about, you know, the treatment itself. And if you've been through the prescription route, it takes weeks before they can see if they get the cocktail right. And with once Brian started, he had 36 treatments back to back. Within a couple of weeks, it was so obvious this was working. His, I'm trying to see if I can find Brian's brain. We have
It's in there somewhere.
I do have one.
he loses it from time to time. I'm trying to figure out where you can see we are like, where's all of our, oh, here's our story. Here we go.
Yeah.
So that you can read a little bit more about Brian and I, but this is why we do what we do. You know, we, let's see, where is that?
Yeah, I don't remember where
Resources,
it's at.
maybe it's under, anyway, there's a picture of Brian's,
But
brain
what
up
it
here.
did within weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I was starting to feel different, but I was very cautiously optimistic because every time they changed the cocktail, I thought something was going to make a difference, right? And but it did change, and it's been 9 months now, and sometimes these treatment, depending on who the person is, sometimes it only lasts a few months, and here we are.
Here's Brian's brain.
That, yeah.
So, and he's very smart man, you know what I mean? So, but this is how he felt before his treatment, and this is how he felt afterwards. I cannot tell you what a game changer. And the
Yeah.
fact that the pharmaceutical companies, we are very big advocates of our own health. Brian suffered with this enemy. Our family suffered. I mean, if you've been affected by chronic depression, you know what I'm talking about. It's lonely. It's, you know, it's just a road that people should not have to go down when there's this kind of treatment. And his doctors, no one told us about this until he had been hospitalized. And then we were fortunate. God put it in our path to meet this doctor that she started talking to us about TMS, and we had never heard of this. And this is after 20 years of being on prescription drugs and that kind of thing. And their budget is way smaller than, like, you know, the larger pharmaceutical companies. But, you know, if you have someone in your family that suffers, please do yourself a favor and just check into this. Is this right for them? Because I just can't even tell you what a difference it's made. I mean,
Yeah, it's just like the brain. It's night and day. It's like we wanted to create the site and the nonprofit to raise awareness, remove the stigma of depression, and get it out there and talking about it. And, you know, if there is a good side to COVID, it's people are talking about mental health these days and what this disease is doing to people in isolation. So,
I mean, and we have some statistics on here, and I'm sure, you know, this all came from Neurostar, that they provided us with this, and this was, you know, probably from last year, but it's probably a lot higher with COVID. I mean, you hear it on the.
And I do want to say there's a lot from Neurostar here because they are the leader. We don't promote any one particular provider or company or anything else, but they were the ones that stepped forward with this. There are others, but they're not FDA approved. So I just want to say that the important thing is get the information, understand what TMS can do, and talk about the benefits of it. I'm not saying that, you know, that's the important thing. I'm not a physician. Nancy's not a physician. We don't go out, but we understand the difference that it makes in people's lives.
You know, there's a study that the U.S. actually, the government, the military part of the government actually uses this strategy to help train and to better train their forces. Like an example that I saw that was given, because my husband was investigating this as well. He pulled up a video. They have it all in this cap. And they wouldn't have the cap on somebody, and they'd have them on a video game where your reactions on how quickly you can, you know, the war games on the video. Once they put the cap on, you could really see the increase in the responses and how quickly they can think, you know, whether or not they're shooting an enemy versus a friendly. On these games, and they actually use it to help increase people's IQs, their memory, their response, everything on there. It's really cool. Amazing that they can do that. Have you read about that part of it too?
No, we stuck to this part of it because of the medical benefits of what it can do. What it really does is it actually stimulates the process of creating serotonin to fight depression.
Right.
So instead of medication doing it, which affects the entire body, this affects that portion of the brain that creates the serotonin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an example of, we had a trip planned, and usually what would happen when we went on a family vacation, because of, you know, if you are someone that suffers from depression, you get out of your routine or your meds you get off, or maybe had a little too many drinks, it can, so many things can affect what kind of day you're going to have. So when we would go on vacation and we got some, you know, like go to Hawaii or whatever, Brian would just, it would be hard, right? So we had a vacation plan shortly after his treatment, and it was like awesome. It was like the best one. He had a great time because, again, you know, he wants to enjoy life, and it's beyond when folks suffer from depression. They can't help it. It's like an illness if you think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the proper, how does this all tie in? So we have pledged a minimum of 10% of our proceeds of Proper Landlord System to fund our own nonprofit. We also would like to ask everyone's help, you know, just to donate in whatever you can to help us, even if we can just help one person have a better life. And had Brian, you know, we're not in our 20s anymore or 30s, but all the time that he had to suffer needlessly, you know, and you know, we just want to share our story about, you know, this is what real estate has done for us. That, you know how you were talking, Wendy, about, well, she's on to something else, but you know what? I'm always looking for that. How can I be a better person? How can I take what I know and give it back? And how can I enhance even one person with my journey and Brian's journey? And, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and I think that's how we learn and grow. But if I can share our mistakes, our journey, you're going to make your own, but maybe you can learn from where, you know, where you've been. And so that's really why we hope. So you can also check us out, the Profitable. I'm going to go back now. Wendy, how do I reshare that so that
Hold on a second. Let me get back to it.
All right.
Yeah, you can. You just,
okay, I'll go back. Okay, here we go. Share. So I'm going to fast forward here really quick. Okay, so this is where we were. So, you know, we have irresistible offers. I'm not going to, you guys are all smart. I'm just going to say, you know what, if you're interested in the Profitable Landlord System, we do have a special going on. I like to do groups of 5 when I'm working with people. And the way we wrote this, it can work in any market. The field trips will be a little bit difficult because I'm not, you know, I'm here in Dallas. But there it goes, you know, we do have a special. But again, just call me. But here's all of my contact info. There's the Profitable Landlord System. We have an assessment, like just go in there and take the assessment to see where you're at if you're into single family. And here's all my contact info. And the workbook will actually be out on Amazon in probably about a month. It's at the editors. And I have a book coming out as well. We don't know what it's going to be called yet, but about a month. But it's about the Profitable Landlord System, our journey and our legacy, and why we do what we do. And what we wanted to do this time is it's really our story about all the tenants that not all of them, but I've had a lot of stories in there about tenants and how I found properties and what made this property, you know, better than the other one. And so with the Profitable Landlord System, we actually have 10 risk identifiers for each category of funders, and those are for you guys, tenants and properties. And if you're a person that's looking to scale your business, we also have a whole section, a module just on building your team. So
awesome.
That's what we're working on. So I'm going to kind of just thank you again, Wendy, for having me on this morning.
Well, do me a favor. I want to hear a story or two about tenants that you've had to deal with and how you handled it.
All righty. So let me, how about one that passed away in the house?
And I'm gonna unshare so we can see your face big.
I'll stop the share here. Let me stop the share.
Okay.
Okay, so I have actually a couple good ones. So I'm going to tell I'm going to tell one about a tenant. Oh, okay. Brian's going to step away.
I have to go, so I'm going to.
He has another call.
So I'm going to let you
Thank
go.
you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you.
So we had a tenant that, oh my gosh, he was gorgeous, beautiful. His hair was just perfect. His name was Anthony, and he came in with the sweat. This is like a few years ago when the sweaters, when guys used to wear the sweaters, you know, over here like that. I mean, he was model, GQ model perfect. And just the nicest guy. So he had been in one of our properties. I'm all about the long-term tenants. And so he had been in one of our properties for about 3 years. And he always paid his rent on time. So, you know, the rent time came and went. And I was like, I wonder what happened with Anthony, you know. And so I would always email my tenants and say, hey, you know, your rent was due yesterday. What's going on or whatever. And then he didn't. So we decided to do a drive. He wasn't returning my phone calls. So I got in the car and drove over to the house and just to, you know, knock on the door, put the notice on. And so one of the neighbors came out, walked around. There's like the big picture window and the back was all broken out. And one of the neighbors came out and said, oh, well, the homicide police were here. I'm like, what? So it turns out that there was a scuffle in the property. And Anthony was not killed that way, but he ended up committing suicide. And and so here's a tip. Always make sure you have emergency contact info of somebody who does not live in the property. So I had to call his mother. And so yes, and so it turns out that he had been a big drug user. He just hid it very well. And he suffered from depression, and he ended up you know, taking his own life. So then and she had given me permission to, you know, they had already gotten the stuff out of the house. And when it was, I guess the coroner's office, I had to call the Dallas police or Plano Police Department and say, hey, you know, can I go in there? And because they had done it as a crime scene at first, because I guess with the suicide, they have to investigate. So once we got clearance to go back in the house, I called my locksmith, Bruce, and he is about 4'3" and about 109 years old. I mean, he is the sweetest man. And I was like, I told him what happened. So I met him over at the house. And so I was a little nervous. I wasn't sure what we were going to find because I didn't know how he had committed suicide. I didn't know if it was going to be a meth. I didn't know what I was going to find. Now, the body had already been gone. Well, it turns out that he, I don't know how graphic he wanted me, but he hung himself in the garage. But it turns out, so we open up one of the bedroom closets and there's all these, I don't know how Bruce knew what they were, but they were all these toys. Let's just put it that way. And I'm not talking about slides or Tinker Toys or Legos. And so I was just like, I didn't know what they were hanging in the closet. I didn't know there was some swing. Use your imagination. It turns out like the garage, they had converted the garage into this kind of, for lack of better word, like some orgy room or something.
Wow.
And yeah, and so there was the ladder where he had, you know, so anyway, there was no mess in the house. So, okay, so we go through this and everything, and it's sad. Now some time has passed, so it's not, you know, I'm kind of making some jokes here, but some time has passed. So then I have to get that window, you know, the window's still open. So I sent over one of my big burly handyman. And he called me, and he did board up the window, but he would not go back to that house because he swore that he saw a ghost there. He swore, and I was like, oh my gosh. So when you have a rental property and somebody passes, you don't, unless it's a murder, you do not have to disclose it. But you know what? I went ahead and disclosed it because the neighbor who had come over and told me the whole story, you know, they're going to tell the tenant. So if you have a property and somebody passes, even if it's natural causes or what, just disclose it, right? Because what I didn't want to happen was like, oh my gosh, the next tenant would be like, oh, you didn't tell me this, I want to break the lease. So it worked out all good. Another really positive story is I had a guy, so in our screening criteria, we would, you know, we do a criminal background and all of that. And so I had a guy, Al, and Al was a very large African-American man, right? Very large. I mean, I'm saying he was probably 6'5", about 300 and some pounds. And so he came to rent and he was like Mr. Gentle Giant. So he came and he applied for one of our properties, and he disclosed to me he had been in prison for 10 years for dealing drugs. So I contacted the owner and said, okay, here's the situation. He's got, you know, he was looking for a second chance. So the owner said, yes, go ahead and give him a second chance. And I said, okay. And you know what? Al ended up being in one of our properties for 8 years, and he
Wow.
was the best tenant. And it turns out the only problem I had with Al was he decided to become a cake baker. And so he was baking cakes in the house with he needed like the the kind of stove that an oven that the bakers need. So he burned up the stove of the owner. So I had to, take care of that. And he would disconnect the smoke alarm because he was baking so many cakes. Well, I had gone out to his house, and he would bring me cakes, and he was a very good cake baker. So after about 8 years, he came to me, he told me he had been sick. He got colon cancer, and Al did end up, he ended up going into hospice and passing away. So when we went to the house afterwards, he had a friend that would come to the house or whatever that we knew, and he had all these cake baking racks and stuff. And so that's what I say when I give presentations about, tenant screening. Like, Al disclosed, and he was just looking for somebody to give him a second chance. And you know what? He turned out to be one of our very best tenants, and he could bake some good cakes. So
we're always up for free food, right?
that's right. And kind of my last story, and I guess I'm going to tie it in with COVID. So one of the reasons I believe in long-time tenants is because sometimes people they're never going to buy a house, right? But they have money, and they would make good tenants, and they're going to take care of your property. So in one of my very own properties, I have a guy that's been in the house. I think they're going on 9 years. My long tenant has been 11 years. And he's a firefighter, and his wife's a teacher, just the cutest little couple. He doesn't usually take care of the yard too good, but thank goodness it's not in an HOA. But the house is always just super, super cute. So back in 2016, we had a very bad hailstorm here in the North Dallas area. And I mean, houses were just creamed. We had hail like the size of this. Wow. And so in this particular property, in this area, it just got slammed, and I had holes that went all the way through the decking. It broke out every window in the house. And this tenant and his buddies, what they did is when it started happening, he had all of his firefighter buddies come over and board up the house. And he literally, because of his actions, helped to reduce the damage to my property. And I really appreciate that. So it took, because of so many houses being destroyed, it took like 4 months to get the house back in order with the insurance and all that. So during that time, I only charged them like half month because they had to live with 9 windows boarded up that whole time.
Wow.
So you never know. I mean, I think sometimes people give tenants a bad rap because they're tenants, they're not going to be homeowners. Really, one of my secrets to being successful as a landlord is I look for people that probably will never buy a house, because I don't want the churn. You always have to spend money when the tenant moves out. And when you have a property management company, they want tenants because they make money on the leasing side of it. So they want tenants that go every year because then they make more money that way. So when I was looking for a property management company, I'm like, well, if I don't have final say on the tenant, these are the criteria I want, we're not going to do business. So that, I did a presentation a couple days ago, and the lady was asking me about, well, the property management company spent all my money and did this. And I said, well, it's your property. You can still decide what repairs you're going to do and that kind of thing. So there's a whole module we do just on property management. So.
Wow. That's a really good point. I never really thought about that. They do make more money when it turns over.
Yeah.
Like that. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, because they're charging you like 1 month's rent. Now, granted, they're paying half of it out to somebody else, but yeah, their goal. So see how a property management company, they're not aligned with my goals. So that was one of my struggles with the property management company. And there's a lot of property management companies that do reduced fees, because they always say, well, we can't talk about fees. Well, most of them charge like 10%. I can say this now because I'm not in property management. 10%. What I found this last go around was that almost all of them were charging 8% of the rent. But what you really have to be careful of is the other fees that they have, because they might only charge 5% of the rent, but then every time they, go check your property, they're charging you $125, or they're charging you this. And I'll give you an example of what happened with this brand new property management company. And I know the guy. So I just so happened, as I was turning over my rental portfolio, I also had a vacancy. So one of my tenants decided they had already given me notice. So it wasn't like a surprise or anything like that. And so I said, okay. And I thought, well, I'll go ahead and let them, at first I was going to do it. And then that control part of me said, okay, no, I just need to, that's why I'm hiring a property management company. So they come back and I had already done the walkthrough. And I gave the tenant, this is how good it was. I gave the tenant, they'd been there 4 years. I gave the tenant back every dime of their property management or their security deposit. So, okay, that tells you that the property was in pretty good condition. It did need new paint, it needed carpet. So they send me an invoice or an estimate because I said, I don't want any work done. Write this into your property management agreements. They are not allowed to spend any more than less than $250 without my approval, written approval. So anyway, they send me a quote for, and this is a 950 square foot condo, townhome, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, for $4,000 to paint and do a make ready. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, literally, it shouldn't cost more than $1,200 to paint this. And they were going to put in wood faux blinds where there was, I'm like, we don't need to do wood faux blinds. This is a rental. We're doing those 1-inch plastics, baby. Even if it had wood faux blinds in it before, I don't replace them on a rental. And so I asked him, I said, well, why is this so expensive? We didn't even get into the carpet because it has laminate throughout. So it's just, this wasn't even in carpet. I was like, yeah, no, that's way too high. I'd rather, so in order for me to get my own person to bid it, which I was willing to do, they wanted me to, my guy had to have his insurance with their name on it, which is just kind of a pokey thing that they do to try and get you not to do that. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I own that property. I'll tell you who's going to go in there and go out, and I have insurance, so I'm okay with that. So they got through that. So see, you have to know what you're talking about if you're going to have a property management company. So anyway, I said, well, tell me why, what's going on there? Well, this particular property has a ton of crown molding. I'm saying like on the walls, at the fireplace. It's all because the people we bought it from had really, fixed up this little townhome. Anyway, I said, well, I don't want any of that crown mold. And they were painting doors. I was like, yeah, no, none of that needs to be done. It's just the walls. So I got that $4,000 quote where they were going to do this, that, and the other, down to $2,000, which did include the make ready. And there were some other things they had to do that, were maintenance done. But yeah, so you need to ask questions. It's your property. And I also have my property management agreement written where if I'm not happy with the service, I'm not going to be in there for a year with them. So yeah. It's your property. So
yeah, I actually rented a couple of apartments in downtown Rock Hill and turned them into short-term rentals for a year with a very popular management company here in Rock Hill. And when we were done with our lease, I paid a cleaner to go in and not only clean it like in the cracks, cleaning it. I also had her wipe down the walls and make sure everything was perfect. They ended up sending me a bill for over $1,000 on each of those units. And I knew it was false, but I couldn't fight it. There was nothing I could do to prove that they were wrong. Even though I had pictures showing what it looked like, there was nothing I could do about that. And I was really, really frustrated. I'll never use Reinhardt again. So, but
well,
anyway.
I have a quick story. It has to do with just because
we're over our time, so make it really quick.
All right. Well, I'll leave it for another time. So another time.
Well, and we'll have you back, Nancy. That was really good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing the story about your husband, what he's gone through. Map of Hope. That's so awesome to hear what you're doing in giving back. We really, really appreciate that. And what was the website again for your Profitable Landlord?
It's called Profitable Landlord System.
Awesome.
Profitable Landlord System. If you go to my LinkedIn, you'll find a link there as well. So just Google me, Nancy Laabs, and pick up a book of Winning Deals and Heels too. So
hold on, I'm going to type this in. Nancy Laabs. Oops, I put Bob's. It's not. And there we go. It's 2 A's, right?
Yeah, 2 A's.
Gotcha. So I just typed that into the chat. Gotcha. Nancy, thank you so much again.
Thank
I
you,
really,
Wendy.
really appreciate it. And folks, we will be back next week with Dave Richter. Dave was actually our first guest when we went with Zoom back in February. He is very into the Profits First book, and he has actually teamed up with the writer of Profits First, and they are doing a book together that's Profits First for real estate investors specifically. And he's going to talk about that. So we'll see you guys next week. Have a great, wonderful week. Again, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate it. Thank you,
thank-
everybody. God
Thank
bless.
you. Love you, mean it, guys.